and this guy comes out with a machete out of the woods, just out of nowhere. Hola amigos, Jim and Mai here from Spanish and Go, and we're coming at you from Guanajuato, Mexico. A level 2 on the US State Department travel advisory scale.
But why do we mention that? Well, because there's a question we get asked all the time. Is Mexico dangerous? So, after years of living and traveling in Mexico, we feel very qualified to answer that question.
So in this video, we're gonna give you 9 tips for traveling safely through Mexico.
Empecemos!
Drugs,
Rape,
murder,
dismembering,
kidnapping.
crime.
These are all things that people tend to associate with Mexico, but why? If you come to Mexico, are you gonna get kidnapped or murdered? The reality of the situation is quite different than what the media often portrays.
The US State Department has a travel advisory scale level which goes from 1 to 4, number 4 being do not go there. And there's 5 states in Mexico which are in the 4 level, which are Colima, Michoacán, Guerrero, Sinaloa, and Tamaulipas. And from those 5 states, we have visited 3, and I am from one of them. I am from Colima, and Colima is now supposedly the most dangerous place in Mexico right now.
And Colima is actually where we've spent the most time in Mexico. We've even hitchhiked there, and we're still alive. So we've traveled all over Mexico, flying, taking trains, driving for hours. And have we ever felt unsafe, Mai?
Not really. We know that most of the violence here in Mexico is related to cartels. So if you're coming to Mexico and you have no plans of buying or selling drugs, you're doing a lot already to protect yourself from crime.
That's right, crack is whack. Stay away from the drugs and you're probably going to be fine.
So we have 9 tips that we want to share with you. These are things that we do all the time to stay safe here in Mexico.
So tip number 1, drive only during the day. We are very strict about this. We make sure that if we're going to be traveling by car, that we only drive during the day. We take buses at night occasionally, but if we're driving, you don't want to find yourself driving along a highway somewhere only to be stopped by some nefarious criminals. We've heard of this happening. People get stopped on the highway sometimes, especially when they're vulnerable. And when are you most vulnerable? At night. On top of that, I'd make sure that you take a toll road whenever possible, day or night. That's going to make sure that there's some checkpoints in between the cities that you're driving through that kind of help make sure that there's not anything fishy going on. Usually with those checkpoints, they can kind of monitor what's going on the highway.
The second tip we have for you is to never put all your money in one spot, and also never have too much money on you. So what we do is that if we have our things at the place we're staying in, we leave most of the money, we leave it there, and we only go out with just what we need for the day. If we're going out for lunch and then we know maybe we want to go to a museum or something, we only have enough for each day with us.
Number 3, try to blend in. You don't want to go to a place where the average income is $20,000 a year and you come in with an Apple Watch and your computer and all of these things that most people in the area don't have. You want to fit in and be modest. If you're standing out and wearing really nice clothes and carrying and flashing nice technology and cash on you, it's going to make you more of a target. We like to visit less touristy places, and places like Colima, where my mother-in-law lives, sometimes I'm one of the few gringos in the city, and I stand out. I notice that people are noticing me. I already stand out just because I have light skin. I don't need to draw extra attention to myself. and I'm not afraid in Colima, but I would recommend in general, if you're visiting a place, especially a less touristy place, to just do your best to blend in.
Tip number 4 is take only authorized taxis. Nowadays, there's other services like Uber or Chauffeur Pro or Lyft in some cities in Mexico, but there are places where the only option you have sometimes is to take a taxi. And what we do whenever we have to take a taxi is that we buy a ticket at a kiosk, or we look for the sitio de taxi, which is the place where all the taxis are gathered. They're like waiting in line for the next person to come. So when you buy a ticket or when you take a taxi from the sitio, you're making sure that this taxi is not a pirata, that it has permits, that it's a legal taxi to be offering their services. So we like to buy tickets for taxis because there's usually set prices for each destination. So it's really helpful to be able to confirm the price of your trip before you get in the taxi.
And remember, in Mexico, don't usually tip taxi drivers. So if you want to know more about tipping in Mexico, check out our video about that. Number 5, if you can avoid it, try not to go alone. And if you do go alone, try to only walk around places where it's well lit and there's people around. This will help you stay a little safer than if you're alone and potentially more of a target to somebody else who wants to come along and do harm to you or rob you, whatever the case may be. In my case, we used to live in Playa del Carmen for a while, and back then we didn't have internet at our apartment. So I'd often go to the cyber cafe to do some work, and I would walk home often at night. And usually this wasn't a problem, but one night I was sexually assaulted by a prostitute. No joke. It wasn't anything violent, and I was able to walk away kind of laughing about the matter. But yeah, a prostitute did grab me by the crotch, trying to convince me for their services, and I walked home pretty quick after that to see mine.
Feeling dirty and used. And this may sound like, if you're a guy, you could be like, great, yeah, I want that to happen, or I don't know. But sometimes these sexual workers are professional pickpocketers. So you do have to be careful.
Oh yeah, that happened to our friend Matt.
Yeah.
Our friend Matt, the expert vagabond, he had his phone stolen from him.
In Playa too.
In Playa del Carmen. He was able to get it back though. He realized before the phone was gone for good, chased down the sex worker and got his phone back. So stay vigilant and try not to go alone.
And the next tip, number 6 we have for you, is to trust your instinct. Sometimes you feel like a weird vibe or something is telling you that you shouldn't be in that place. Don't even think about it. Just grab your stuff, go somewhere else. We have been in situations where we are taking pictures or we're about to fly the drone and something tells us that we shouldn't be doing that, and we don't think about it twice. We pack our things, we go somewhere else because we know that nobody's gonna take better care of us than ourselves. So make sure you trust your instinct.
Right. There's only really about 2 times in Mexico where I felt uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily unsafe, but uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Angangeo, when we went to see the butterflies, that felt a little sketchy. It felt like people were watching us. And
not because something bad was gonna happen, but also like the locals were telling us to be careful, and that made us feel more
on edge.
Yeah. They would look at the car and be like, oh, make sure you're always watching your car because things happen here. We would be like, why? Or things like that. So that made us feel a little weird.
Yeah, and nothing happened, but okay, I've got one story. I can think of one time where I felt a little unsafe in Mexico. And this lasted maybe 2 minutes. I was flying the drone near Angangeo when we were going to see the monarch butterfly sanctuary. And we're just coming back, and I wanted to get a shot of the landscape, and there was a bunch of woods, and I was flying the drone, it was up in the air, and this guy comes out with a machete out of the woods, just out of nowhere, and he said that he was drunk, or no.
He looked, very drunk.
He said he was hungover, and he needed money to cure his hangover. I don't know what you buy to cure a hangover. Probably more alcohol. I don't know.
Maybe.
But he had a machete when he asked me. And so in that moment, I didn't feel like I had a choice to give him the money. So I just, you want 10 pesos, here's 20. So that was the only time I was a little on edge about my safety in Mexico. But nothing happened. Number 7, use your Spanish. Let it be known that you understand what people are saying around you. This makes you less vulnerable for pretty obvious reasons. If you let people know that you understand them, then they're going to be more cautious about trying to plot against you for any reason. This can be really helpful in situations where maybe no one wants to take advantage of you aggressively, but maybe financially, and you can let it be known that, hey, this isn't your first time in Mexico, maybe it is, but if you speak Spanish, you can reason with people and let them know that you understand them, you're there for, well-intentioned reasons, you're not there to harm anyone or rip anybody off, and that you want to, make friends and be on good terms with people. People will respect you more just because you've taken the time to speak their native tongue. That being said, what are some useful phrases if you're in a tough situation or you need to explain something to somebody or there's some sort of emergency?
Well, one of them could be, alguien llame a la policía. Again, alguien llame a la policía. That means someone please call the cops. Another phrase that you could use is, this is just a word, ayuda. That means help, ayuda. Something else, maybe you need a doctor. So, necesito un doctor. What else? Is there any other you can think of?
No traigo dinero. I think that comes in handy a lot because there's a lot of people asking for money in certain areas of Mexico. Mm-hmm. And just simply saying that kind of disarms them a little bit from thinking that you're carrying a load of money.
Yeah, so that is again, no traigo dinero or no traigo nada, which can also be understood as I have nothing.
It's not worth it. Don't bother robbing me.
Yeah, I have nothing. No tengo nada.
Okay.
Is there any other?
Oh, there's plenty of others, but stay tuned to the channel and we'll help you out with that.
Tip number 8 is have an emergency contact. If you can, make sure someone knows every step of your travel. So a family member or a friend should have a list of the places you're going to be visiting. Or also, you could have someone track your location while you're traveling in the country. This may sound like it's too much, but you have to do everything to stay safe.
Yeah, especially if you're in an unfamiliar area, just send your location.
And if you're traveling by yourself too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so easy these days to just share your location with a friend or family member. Mm-hmm. That way you kind of have that extra level of security, knowing that somebody else knows exactly where you are. And number 9, make copies of all of your important documents. I think it's important to have a copy of your passport, your credit card numbers, your license, and backup phone numbers, emergency contact phone numbers. In fact, some of them you should have memorized. But in case you don't, at least have a backup somewhere, either a digital copy or even a physical copy, and both if you can. It's better to travel with the copy easily accessible and the original protected. But I also keep a digital copy that no matter what happens, all of my stuff could be stolen, and then I would be able to go to a computer somewhere and access my encrypted information and prove that I am who I say I am and that I have a valid passport and all of these things. You also want to make sure that you have your bank's phone number in case you get a credit card stolen. You can call and cancel that. And one bonus tip related to that, you can have a copy of your wallet. Just have one wallet, have all of your expired credit cards. I call this my dummy wallet. I don't carry it as much these days, but there are certain places that we travel to where I'll have a dummy wallet. That way, if I were to get mugged for some reason, you hand the dummy wallet that maybe has $5 or $10 in cash in it and some expired credit cards. Someone will look at that real quick and say, oh, okay, and you'll have time to take off. At least that's the hope, right? You'll be able to get away fast enough before they realize that they didn't really get away with much at all.
So if you're feeling nervous about visiting Mexico because of all the bad things you've seen or heard happening in the country, just follow our guidelines and also use common sense.
Mexico is beautiful. It's full of nice people who want nothing more than to help you and to make sure that you have a pleasant experience visiting their country. Unfortunately, just like any other place in the world, there are people who do want to harm you or steal from you, and you just have to be vigilant.
Now, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more travel and Spanish tips.
And remember, el camino es el destino. The journey is the destination. So nos vemos pronto.
Adios.